I don't know if it's getting older and wiser or the fact that I now have a diagnosis for the reason I feel like I'm a little bit different. Either way, I have been looking at certain social norms, I would say over the past maybe 3 years, and realizing that they just don't work for me. They drain my energy, and I spend a lot of unnecessary time overthinking things that just don't mean anything to me. So, in today's video, I'm going to share some of the social norms that over the past couple of years I have either started ignoring or intentionally just completely gotten rid of. And all of them have had a positive impact on my life. And of course, the things that I list may not be relevant to you, but hopefully in this video, I can at least inspire you to think about social norms that you might be following or adhering to that are actually a big waste of time and energy, and you can ditch them and feel a lot lighter as a result. So let's get into it. But before we go there, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Kara McGill. I'm an ADHD coach and creator, and I'm here for the busy, ambitious brains who want to do all the things, but they're bogged down by a bunch of dumb social norms that make no sense and have no value in their life. So let's get into it. The first social norm that I no longer subscribe to, and it's kind of a sneaky one that is pretty new, is the idea of clothing hauls and reshaping your wardrobe by buying a whole bunch of cheap clothes every season. Like, when I was growing up, this was never a thing. I think it's become a social norm, and we can probably blame fashion influencers for this, that every season we have to completely rejigger our wardrobes and we have to buy a whole bunch of stuff, whether we share it on social media or not, but that seems to be normal as well. And it's just the constant consumption of buying new things, whether it's cheap things or expensive things, but we never hear about the things you bought 4 years ago that you're still wearing. Heck, I have a pair of pants from Zara that I bought when I was 30, which was over 20 years ago now, that are beautiful and still relevant. And if I have reasons to wear dress pants, I would wear them today. But for the most part, I think this idea of buying clothes for every single season is kind of ridiculous. It's so incredibly wasteful, which is why you probably notice me wearing the same t-shirts from Target in every single video. First of all, because fashion is not really my thing, and I don't want that to be a topic of conversation on these videos. But the other thing that's more important is that when you're not constantly refreshing your wardrobe, you don't deal with that guilt of, I bought this thing and the tag is still on it 4 months later, I never wore it, or I should really wear this thing today, but I don't feel like wearing it. Like, all that cognitive load, completely unnecessary. So if I want to buy something new because I think it's cute, I will buy something new. But this idea of refreshing my wardrobe for every spring, fall, summer, and winter is a social norm that I have absolutely no time for. And to that end, staying on this theme of clothes and fashion, I completely reject the idea that looking put together or cute can often be uncomfortable, and you just have to suck it up and wear uncomfortable clothes that look good. And I actually subscribe to that social norm for a long time in corporate. And maybe this is more of a Gen X thing, where when we started our careers, you had to wear like pantyhose and skirts and things like that. I actually worked at a department store once where women were not allowed to wear pants. Yes, I guess I am that old. Shout out to Zellers circa 1986. But I digress. I will not wear clothes that are uncomfortable for me, whether it's shoes or a dress that I might look fantastic in, but I can barely breathe in. Maybe that's just a sign of me getting older, but that is a social norm that I am completely done with. And one of the privileges I have from working from home is that I never have to wear hard pants ever again. I'm wearing shorts right now. That's generally what I wear in the summer, leggings in the winter, and that is my work wardrobe. That is what I feel comfortable in. That is what I feel creative in. And I celebrate the fact that I never have to wear pants with a zipper ever again in my life if I don't feel like it. And that feels really good. And speaking of money and working, one of the biggest social norms that I have been ditching lately, and it's taken me a long time, and if I'm being perfectly honest, it's probably still something that I work on, is rejecting this idea of hustle over self-care. And I don't mean to make it sound like I am some workaholic that has busted my ass my entire life. It's more nuanced than that. It's saying yes to things that I should have said no to because I had enough on my plate, or constantly being available during busy times at work. I'd be checking my email at night just in case my boss or somebody on my team needed me. And while those things sometimes have a place in your career, I did it too much and it wasn't necessary. And very often my self care took a punch in the face as a result of it. Even when I went into consulting with the idea of, well, once I'm a consultant, then I'll have more autonomy over what I'm doing and my projects will be shorter. I still had that mindset. I have to go over and above just to be good enough. And again, I think some of that might be Gen X culture. I don't think some of the younger generations feel that same way, but it has always been something that I've worried about, that if I have not put my job before other things, I would get fired. And while that's never actually happened, it's a social norm that I got really wrapped up in. And certainly now as an entrepreneur, I don't have that need to please as much, but it can still show up in certain ways. Like if I wake up and I don't feel very well, but I have client calls, I will 100% show up for those calls, regardless of how I'm feeling. So that's still very much a work in progress. And I do think there's a social norm, especially here in the US, where work has to come before everything else. And if you're not feeling well or if you're tired or burnt out, you just need to push through and get her done. And that's actually a really toxic way to go through life when you think about it. So I'm working on that one every day and I continue to get better and better. The other social norm that I have bucked and it has made 100% difference in my life is this idea of making sleep secondary to other things. 100% do not subscribe to any and all of the above, even if it's taking a crack of dawn flight to go on vacation. The one thing I've noticed about myself, especially being neurodivergent, is that if my sleep is compromised in any way, I am a complete waste of skin for the next 24 hours. So if it costs me more to get more sleep, if I have to get my own hotel room to get a good night's sleep rather than sharing with somebody else, 100% of the time, if it means quality sleep, I will either pay extra for it or forgo the whole experience because my sleep means that much to me. I will never be one of those people that subscribes to the social norm of you can sleep when you're dead, because not getting sleep, I'm pretty much am dead. Now let's talk about relationships and the social norms that I have walked away from in order to retain my peace. The first social norm I knew I had to walk away from was this idea of having a busy social calendar, right? Like I always used to feel like your relevance in this world could be marked by how many events you have coming up, how many friends you have, and just how much you're doing stuff. And when I was younger and single and had more energy, I subscribed to it. And I now look back and realize that I pushed myself into a lot of it because naturally I'm an introvert. So having a lot of things in my calendar was draining. But at the same time, I was in my 20s. I wanted to meet people. So I pushed myself to do a lot more than I really wanted to do. And in some cases, I don't regret that because I've had a lot of fun experiences. But on the other hand, I probably could have saved myself a lot of grief in investing in relationships that were never beyond surface level. Now in my 50s, if I have like a couple of social events like in a week, that's a big week. And sometimes that's a good thing. And sometimes it's an oh crap moment that I have overscheduled myself in terms of social events for the week. I don't know if it's getting older or the remnants of the pandemic where I'm just very happy being in my home. And I do go out, like I'm not afraid to leave the house, but whatever I'm leaving the house to go to had better be more interesting or valuable than the time that I could spend sitting on my couch with my dog or working or doing something else that I love to do at home. So the point here is I used to subscribe to that idea of if you don't have a lot of things on your social calendar, then you're living a boring life or you're living a small life. And I completely do not subscribe to that social idea anymore whatsoever. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I am so much happier not having a calendar full of social commitments and events and dinners and things like that. Once in a while, great. But overall, having a spacious calendar for me is peace. And the last social norm that I have walked away from, and it has given me so much peace, is this idea around friendships being forever. And I personally subscribe to that social norm for far too long. And for far too long, I wasted time and energy trying to maintain connections that didn't need to be maintained. It took me a long time to realize that if you had to work hard to keep a friendship relevant, then it's probably not the friendship that you should have in that season of life. But the reason that lesson was so hard for me to learn was that if a friendship came to pass, and I'm not even talking about friendship breakups, just, friendships that drift apart or you move or you have different stages in life, I would take that as a personal failure if I was not able to keep a friendship going. So I would go further than I needed to or do more than it was really necessary to keep that connection alive. And that never worked out well for me. And it took me far too long to realize that it's okay if friendships last a couple of years and then you grow apart. It's okay if you have different seasons in life and you grow apart and maybe come back together again. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the other person. Doesn't mean they're bad or you're bad. It just meant that that friendship had run its course and that it was okay to gently let it go away. And in learning that, I've been able to just gently let go of friendships that were no longer working for me, whether I felt like I was giving too much or it felt like it was being transactional or that maybe we just didn't have enough in common anymore. Letting them go not only gave me a lot more peace, it also opened me up to be available for new friendships and people who are more aligned with the person I am today rather than the person I was 5, 10, 15 years ago. And I'm just so grateful that I finally had enough self-awareness to examine that belief I had around friendships and move past it. Because not only has it opened me up to friendships that feel more relevant for who I am today, but it has also released all of that overthinking I had about why isn't this friendship feeling the same way it did 5 years ago? And what's wrong with me? And how can I make it better? Being able to just gently and naturally letting relationships go wherever they want to go without me having to invest more energy into it has just made me a happier person. And I could not recommend that mindset shift enough. So those are the social norms that I have walked away from either because of age and maturity or because my neurodivergent self needed something different. And it has had a dramatic improvement on my life. So I share those not because I think you should make the same changes, but to inspire you to look at the social norms you might be following in your own life that aren't serving you and potentially just let them go so that you can have more peace and lightness in your own life. So that's what I've got for you today, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.